Welcome to another insightful episode of Grandma Says. And here's Grandma.
And welcome back to Grandma Says. This podcast, we're going to discuss scheduling part 2 when it comes to infants, but I'm going to go ahead and add in or start on the toddler side because there's really not a whole lot more to cover with infants. The main thing to know with infants is that you need to do everything in advance, and that by itself is where you control their schedule and then make their schedule work with your schedule. In order to avoid emotional problems later in life, you want to make sure that the schedule for an infant always makes them feel safe and secure, and that their needs are always met without them having to demand, or you don't want them in a situation where there's always I have to scream to tell you I'm hungry. That's not necessary. As a parent, you should have them on a feeding schedule so there's no need for them to ever be hungry. At the same time, you want to make sure that if there's bath time, they know when it's bath time. That doesn't mean they can look at a clock and tell you it's bath time. But if you have a routine, they have an expectation and they know that bath time means bedtime, or they know what comes next. And those things are important to build a level of stability that will eventually affect their emotions, as in how they're going to respond to something is largely based on how you have established their life with you. Because there's not really a whole lot more to add to the infant part, let me give you a summation of what to do when it comes to infants. 1, you want everything that you can do for them done in advance. That is, you should not be looking for shoes and blankets and passies and toys and all that stuff when it's time to leave the house. These things should already be packed ahead of time so that you don't forget anything. You know, you don't want to get somewhere and have one diaper or no diapers. Food and things can be prepared at night as soon as you finish cleaning the bottles. That way, you don't have to spend your whole day trying to get this or that ready with the kid on your hip and they're screaming and you're trying to warm a bottle and the other thing over there, the formula's falling over and the powder's on the floor and now you got to clean the floor. You want to avoid all of these things by scheduling what you need to do for your child and yourself during the times that the child is asleep. Understand, infants will sleep all day and all night, depending on how you are handling their schedule. You want to make sure that they are comfortable so they don't have a fear response. If your child is afraid, it's going to come across in their behavior. And it's one of those things where fear kind of grows. Fear is not something that just goes away. Fear is something that grows over time. And it can be easily reinforced, which is the opposite of what you want to do. You know how people like to tease little kids and they may grab a puppet or something and tease them with this puppet. And then you find out years later, now this kid has an irrational fear of puppets. It's because fear has a way of growing. It doesn't go away unless somebody finds a way to discover, oh, this person is afraid of this or that. Let's see if we can't undo that and turn it into something else. Introduce them to the reality of what that is. It's a puppet. It's not going to hurt you. Look, you put your hand in it, that sort of thing. Learning your infant's communication skills and responding accordingly. Getting your infant to learn your communication skills so that they respond accordingly. And this cuts back on a lot of unnecessary crying and stress and behavior issues that develop as early as infancy. Making sure you have the proper kinds of developmental toys available for them so that you're not their toy. You don't have to provide all their entertainment. They should be able to smack the mirror, kick the clown, play with the mobile, and what have you, without always looking to you to provide every single thing that they need. And of course, try to make sure that things are not changed too often when they're small. You want them to get used to and accustomed to the safety of knowing, oh, I'm in my bouncer. Oh, I'm in my onesie. Now I'm in my swing, versus they're just moving from place to place to place to place and they don't know what's going on ever. So that's kind of your rule of thumb with making sure that your infant is on a schedule and they are emotionally stable so that you are controlling them instead of them controlling you. Now that brings us to toddlers. There's a lot of wrong teaching out here regarding toddlers, and it's not that I want to nitpick and mistreat anyone who feels as though they are professionals in the childcare industry. However, there's a lot of school of thought promoting the idea that toddlerhood means that you're supposed to wean a child off of things and push them towards a kind of independence. That is not necessarily true, nor is it a safe way to help your child learn how to deal with themselves, their surroundings, their worlds, or their emotions. A good example of this would be children who have blankets, whoopies, and teddy bears. It's very common for kids to pick up this habit when they are still toddlers. Oftentimes what happens, parents are so afraid that, oh my gosh, my 1.5-year-old still has a pacifier. There's something wrong with that. Well, it depends on how much stability you've provided as to whether or not that child should or should not have one. There are children who, for instance, let's say you're in a real profession that keeps you busy. If you're a truck driver or you're a doctor, or you basically spend a great deal of time away from your child, that inanimate object, whether it's a pacifier, a blanket, a teddy bear, or whatever, it kind of provides the stability for them that you're not there to provide. Now, I would not suggest not providing emotional stability because that is part of your job as a parent, but you don't want to traumatize the kid by giving them this thing to replace you and then taking it away when they're not ready for that yet, especially if you haven't adjusted your schedule to where you're spending more time with them. Just like with infants, toddlers need a level of stability, which means you don't want a lot of changes and you don't want changes that are fast. You want to transition toddlers into every activity in a slow, very deliberate process so that they learn how to adjust and when to adjust until they're able to adjust naturally in their own way, in their own time. A toddler schedule, first of all, needs to meet or match them based on where they are developmentally. The weird thing with toddlers is that it's hard to gauge where a toddler is just based on age. There's a lot of people who get into the argument of, well, my child was walking at 9 months. How come yours isn't walking and he's already 12 months? Age doesn't matter with toddlers. It really matters as to where their developmental stages are. Believe it or not, a lot of kids who turn out to be the baby geniuses in our world, their developmental stage physically is usually pretty slow. They're not walking at 9 months because they're thinking at 9 months. They're not paying attention to stuff like cartoons and you wiggling stuff in front of their face and they look like they can't see you. Oftentimes that's because their mind is off somewhere else and developing things that's beyond where we are. So it's important to note these things and not try to force your kid or push your kid into any particular direction. Toddlers are going to develop at their own pace. And I've told people before, you're very seldom going to run into a 3-year-old who can't walk. So if they can't walk at 9 months, don't worry about it. They will be on their feet when it's time to be on their feet. They will learn to hold a spoon when it's time to learn to hold a spoon. And if there's something seriously wrong, your doctor probably would have already noticed and told you when the child was born, because most of these things can be detected ahead of time. If there's some kind of physical discrepancy, that will show up. Short of that, a toddler is a toddler. They fall down because they're learning to walk. They scoot around on the ground because they're learning to crawl. They put things in their mouth because they're toddlers. And that's what they do. What you want to do is make sure that you are spending the appropriate amount of time with your toddler based on their developmental stages and needs. On average, we usually say lunch takes about 30 minutes for most people. It can take less time than that if you have a kid who really loves lunch. They like to eat. They're self-feeding already, and they like to wolf down everything on their plate. They can be done in 10 minutes. Who knows? By the same token, if you're trying to teach a child to use utensils, open a container, then it's not unusual to take 45 minutes to a whole hour to get through lunch. So what you want to do is adjust your schedule accordingly so that you're not getting frustrated and upset, because maybe it used to take your kid 30 minutes, but that's when all they were eating were finger foods. Now that they're trying to balance spaghetti on the end of a spoon and get it into their mouth and less on their shirt, it's going to take a while. So adjust your schedule to meet those changes so that you're not responding in a negative emotional way. You want to still be able to praise your kid when they get it right and say, yay, you were able to eat your food versus, oh my God, if you drop that one more time, I swear. Or it's going to take me forever to get this out of their clothes. And speaking of clothes, these are some other things you want to keep in mind with toddlers. Yes, spaghetti is a nightmare. Yes, it will stain your clothes, especially if it's real spaghetti with real meat and real stuff in it. Real food has a way of, like, if you get real blueberries in a white shirt, just dye it blue. It's over. Bleach is not getting that out. Now, we'll go over different things later on what you can get out of clothes. But yeah, blueberries. I mean, unless some of you moms know something I don't, and you could put that in the comment section. Otherwise, yeah, certain things are just call it a day. It's over. Here's a quick and easy rule of thumb when it's time to feed a toddler and they're getting ready to learn to eat foods that are messy. Strip them. Have them sit in their diaper or their little pull-ups if they're potty training, and let them eat naked. That is such an easy thing to do. And oh my gosh, you save yourself so much trouble because you can just use a wet wipe to clean them up when they're done and then put their clothes back on. And just the feeling of, wow, I don't have to replace an outfit. That's just a little tip. I'll have to do tip videos later. And also get those long bibs. You know, the plastic ones with the little pockets at the bottom that cover half their body? Yeah. By the time you reach spaghetti stage, get those. It's a lifesaver. And the pockets help catch anything so it doesn't get on the floor, which means you don't have to wipe the floor unless you have a kid that learns to flick food around. In which case, yeah, you may need to use a little discipline, and we'll talk about that on another podcast as well. So that we can stay on topic, understand that toddlers need lots of stability. They need lots of routine. You do not want to veer off from their routines too often because at this moment you are trying to help them to be emotionally stable. Emotional stability comes with the patience that goes with utilizing their time. Toddlers get frustrated if it's supposed to be playtime, and then you come over and start putting their toys away, or they're trying to figure something out, and your attitude is, well, he's not using the puzzle, so I'm going to put the puzzle up because right now he's playing with the cars. Because their minds don't work like ours, all they know is, you just moved my toy. I was using that, so now I'm going to throw a fit because I want that toy back, even if that toy doesn't fit with this toy. I don't know that yet because I'm a toddler. All I know is they're all toys and they're mine and you touch them. So you want to give them enough space and time to explore their own world until they reach a stage, pre-K stage, where they can start to differentiate. Because at toddler stage, they really can't. They are going to try to stick the Legos together and then eventually a car will get stuck in the Lego. It's what they do. Now, that doesn't mean they can't look and tell the difference. That's not what I mean. What I mean is all they know is both items belong to them. Both items are toys. So yes, they would probably not going to try to make a Lego stick to a car, but it's very possible that they're going to set a Lego on top of the car to see if they can make it roll. This is their early stages of reasoning where they're starting to figure out things that are round will roll. If it rolls, it's not going to sit still if you put it on something else. Let them do it. Some things you don't need to sit there and micromanage, sit with them and go into some scientific explanation as to why the block is not going to roll. Let them figure it out. The more they figure out on their own, the more that they are going to start to see themselves as being intelligent enough to make decisions without your help. And as they get older, that's exactly what they're going to need to do. Now, since we have once again reached the limit mark here on this podcast, I'm going to wrap it up here and we will get into a part 2 of helping your toddler through scheduling. And that way your toddler will learn how to become an emotionally stable person through your tutelage and your ability to manage time. And that's all I have to say about that. And I'll see you on the next podcast.